to someone else for now. You can close your eyes, let your hair down. Breathe in, breathe out. Black girl, we'll leave this fight to someone else. There will be battles you sometimes lose. They never last for a day. In your shoes, you still need to rest too. You still need to rest too. Black girl, I know how much it hurts to always prove your worth. They won't make it easy, but baby, believe me, your life is precious, and you'll be alright. Let's lay down for a while. They'll be just fine. It's okay. You can keep your magic to yourself, keep it tucked away. They'll have to find another wonder for today. You don't always have to be the one to save the world. It's okay. You can keep your magic to yourself, keep it tucked away. They'll have to find another wonder for today. You don't always have to be the one to save the world. You're always the one to save the world. And they never say thank you, girl. I love you. Good night. I love you. Good night. Good night.
My name is Gideon Ochieng. I'm the director for Center for Transforming Mission Kenya, which is part of the Leadership Foundations. We are one of the local leadership foundations, one of the 46 across the globe. We are also a UTC hub, Urban Training Collaborative, which is associated with the Street Psalms. And so that is how we exist in our city of Nairobi, doing both a leadership foundation and a hub. So whatever we do and however we do it, it must take the posture of the incarnation. Nairobi, being a city like any other city globally, has its own fair share of challenges, but it also has a lot of opportunities. And these are the things that we are trying to respond to as an organization. And these opportunities and challenges, vary from, a huge number of youth who are unemployed but also highly skilled. We also have a huge number of emerging leaders and existing leaders. We have great opportunities for business and investment. We have a bustling ground for religious activities. So this is, in a sense, it's a city that has everything in it. It's a melting pot. we have one particular community where I am currently. This is Kibra. It's an amazing place. The world knows Kibra for other things, high number of people living in a square mile. We're talking about, some talk about disease, crime, whatever you want to, whatever you're familiar with. But I know Kibra for other good things. The cities provides us with opportunities and challenges, and these are the ones that we are trying to address or to respond to, both as a leadership foundation and as a training hub. So as a leadership foundation, we're responding to 3 areas, and we do this by gathering leaders, by building their capacity, and then by doing joint initiatives. And as a training hub, we are seeking to do 3 movements, or to make 3 movements as we train our leaders. And these are what we call the incarnational movements. That is what we called it on our end. These are movements from from scarcity to abundance, and then 2, from rivalry to peacemaking. And then the third one is from theory to practice. So as I've just mentioned, these 3 movements are actually a way of seeing, a way of doing, and a way of being. So in other words, as we do all these things, there's a certain posture that we need to embrace as a community or as a city that would then enable us to transform our city. And we have very concrete examples of how we are doing this. And I'm going to use 2. One is what we do with our leaders, and then 2 is what we practically do in our community. So with our leaders, for instance, we do training, and these are trainings that runs for a whole year. And in these trainings we cover various topics, again, that are geared towards helping our leaders to be leaders who are equipped to transform the city that we live in. At the entrance or at the front end, when our leaders come in, most of them are coming from different denominations. Most of the time they don't speak to one another. But by the end of our time together, which is usually just 1 year, these leaders are able to speak to one another in a language that they pretty much understand. They're able to preach at each other's church. They're able to do projects together in a community, which is focused not on individual denominations and congregations, but on the community as a whole. In other words, they started to make a movement from seeing each other as a rival to seeing each other as a partner who can actually create peace within a context. They start actually working together, using their resources. In a sense, they are moving from a place of rivalry to a place of peacemaking. Also, as they, share with one another, go to each other's church, preach, across, they're actually making that movement from where they're seeing, abundance in the midst of, all that everybody else is seeing as scarcity, because otherwise they would actually be competing either for congregants or for the resources and things like that. We work in a diverse environment where we have not only Christians, but in our case we have Muslims as well. We are neighbors. And so, for instance, last year we took an opportunity to ask the question, who is my neighbor? And, in asking that question, both Christians and Muslims were able to, come together just in answering that and expressing for themselves and with one another what they would like to see in their neighborhood and in their neighbor, what they'd like to dream together, how they'd like to, sit with one another, see their kids grow together, do businesses together, and things like that. We've engaged with the schools community, that's the Ministry of Education. We've engaged with pastors. We have engaged with the government, we've engaged with a non-profit organization, we've engaged with for-profit organizations, all to do one thing, that is to set up a basketball court in this community. So in our case, we're using sports as a metaphor for development or for transformation. And as I've just mentioned, you see how many people were able to come together to make sure that this project stand. And that is just an example of how we can actually mobilize the resources from within or without to create something that is beautiful, something that then becomes a catalyst for transformation in our community. So why sports? Sports is something that brings a lot of people together in one setting. For instance, when we opened up this basketball court, we had the entire community invited. And so that was people from Kibra. But we also had people from other parts of the city joining in form of teams or just friends or simple spectators. They came to this world-class court to see a game. Now, from the two examples that I've given, I must say that these things do work. When we decided to move from theory into practice, we've been able to see those two areas work. For example, we've seen that it's actually possible to have a table where Muslim clerics and Christian pastors can actually sit together and talk about peace in their own community. Of the courts that we have built and continues to build in Kibra community, we have seen a great change. For instance, in one school, last year they recorded 0 pregnancy among the graduating youth. This was unheard of because in the past you would have kids sitting for their national examinations while pregnant. But because of sports, I can say without a fear of contradiction that something happened. We created a space where girls and boys spent most of their energy in this safe space, playing, interacting with one another, and as a result, we were able to help them actually to stay away from some of the risky behaviors that are associated with being idle in the community. We've also seen this space actually bring together the entire community where they're able to actually just interact with one another and just enjoy being in the presence of one another while watching either volleyball or basketball. And that has had significant impact, one, in the way the community go out and interact with one another. We've seen instances of reduced crime, for example. We've seen a lot of youth actually pick up a particular sport and follow through with it. 2 years ago, one of the girls who was just introduced to basketball, ended up being picked up to play for a foreign team. One of them won a scholarship and is playing in Uganda, for instance. That is because we actually opened up a space like this for some of our youth. And I want to believe that in the future, as we continue to create several of these spaces, 16 in particular for this Kibra community, we hope that we will see reduced crime rate, we will see reduced pregnancy among the young girls. I hope so also that we can see the number of those who are graduating from primary into secondary school or from secondary school into university grow. But beyond that, I also hope and pray that this will also offer an opportunity for the city to increasingly interact with Kibra, so that the national leagues can be played here, so that other games, other corporate entities can actually pick some of these courts to be their home courts. And by doing so, we can inspire more of our young men and women to actually join sport, but also to find something meaningful to do with their lives.